Welcome, adventurers, to a world where the Shadow Isles meets the Forgotten Realms. Today, we're diving deep into the cursed mist of the Shadow Isles to reimagine some of League of Legends' most terrifying champions as Dungeons & Dragons bosses. These spectral beings aren't just here to haunt Summoner's Rift, they're ready to dominate your next D&D campaign. Picking 3 champions along with the spider god Vilemaw, these champions have been reimagined with stat blocks and abilities that would make any dungeon master tremble. Prepare to challenge your players with bosses that are as deadly as they are iconic. First boss you encounter in the Shadow Isles is the Shepherd of Souls, Yorick. He is a medium humanoid creature, but also counts as undead. His alignment is neutral because he just wants to help lost souls, so I could totally see him helping your party navigate the Shadow Isles like the boatman in Greek mythology. That is, if your party doesn't provoke him.
These isles, how they scream.
He has an AC of 16, HP of 146, or 27d6 plus 50, and a speed of 30. He has a stat total of 89, with 18 in strength, 10 in dexterity, 22 in constitution, 12 in intelligence, 15 in wisdom, and 12 in charisma. He has an immunity to necrotic damage, and for senses, he has a blind sight of 60 feet and a passive perception of 12. He has skills in religion because he is the last remaining member of the lost religion, and intimidation because he's spooky. For saving throws, he gets advantage in all of them except for intelligence and charisma. Moving on to his actions, he has a multi-attack allowing him to make 2 shovel attacks that have a +7 to hit and deal 2d8 plus 4 bludgeoning damage. And he is able to make 1 shovel slam attack that deals 4d8 plus 4 necrotic damage. He has 2 other actions, being Morning Mist, where he can choose a 15-foot cone within 30 feet of him to throw a ball of cursed energy. If there is a creature in that 15-foot cone, they must make a DC 16 dexterity save or be cursed until the end of their next turn. This will come back later. His last ability is Dark Procession. Yorick chooses a 30-foot area within 80 feet of him, and an amalgamation of souls create a wall surrounding the 30-foot area. Creatures cannot pass through the wall. Yorick, ghouls, and Maiden are an exemption and can pass through the wall. There are 2 ways for the wall to disappear. 1, 2 rounds of combat go by, or the wall takes 20 damage or 10 radiant damage. Even though Yorick feels like a big, strong, tanky guy with a shovel, he is actually a summoner. So for his ability, he gets Awakening. If Yorick lowers a creature to 0 HP with his Shovel Slam ability, the creature will become a ghoul when it dies. And for his second ability,
Behold the horrors of the Isles!
Yorick can summon the Maiden of the Mist as a bonus action. Once summoned, the Maiden cannot be summoned until the next dawn. So let's look at his summons. The Ghoul is a small undead with 13 AC, 13 HP, or 3d6 plus 2, and a speed of 20. It has a stat total of 48, with 6 in strength, 10 in dexterity, 12 in constitution, 4 in intelligence, 2 in wisdom, and 14 in charisma. It has a damage resistance to necrotic, blind sight of 20 feet, and a skill in intimidation. For attacks, it gets Scratch, that has a +0 to hit and deals 2d4 necrotic damage. For abilities, it gets a Leap. If a creature is cursed within 30 feet of the ghoul, it will leap to an unoccupied space near that creature and make a Scratch action. If the creature gets hit by a Scratch, when cursed, they will take double damage. For the Maiden, she gets an AC of 15, HP of 75, or 12d8 plus 20, and a speed of 30. A stat total of 65, 10 in strength, 10 in dexterity, 14 in constitution, 5 in intelligence, 10 in wisdom, and 16 in charisma. It has a damage resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage from non-magical attacks, along with necrotic damage. It has a blind sight of 60 feet and a skill in intimidation and saving throw bonuses for dexterity and constitution. It has a couple traits. Endless March, the Maiden is unable to be affected by difficult terrain. Undead Army makes it so the Maiden is awakened with 4 ghouls. And lastly, it gets Incorporeal Movement, just like the other ghosts. For attacks, it can make 2 Siphon attacks. The Maiden chooses a creature within 10 feet of them. That creature must make a DC 14 Constitution save, or take 1 of their hit die plus 2 necrotic damage. The Maiden heals for half of the damage they deal. When you beat all the summons and bring him to his knees, you can move further into the Shadow Isles. Hearing the screaming souls, You enter an area controlled by the mage Karthus, and your combat begins.
The kiss of death.
He has an AC of 15, HP of 15d8 plus 15, and a speed of 30. He has a stat total of 94 with 8 in strength, 15 in dexterity, 12 in constitution, 25 in intelligence, 18 in wisdom, and 16 in charisma. He is immune to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage from non-magical attacks, along with necrotic damage. For senses, he has a dark vision of 60 and a passive perception of 16. He has skills in arcana and insight, along with the saving throw bonuses in intelligence, constitution, dexterity, and wisdom. He has 2 abilities, with innate spell casting, allowing him to cast some necromancy spells, like Chill Touch, Toll the Dead, Inflict Wounds, and Vampiric Touch. His other ability is his passive, Death Defied. Once Karthus is reduced to 0 HP, he enters a purgatory state. In this state, he can use all of his abilities, but he cannot move. He is immune to all damage, and after 2 rounds of combat, he disappears. I like how this works, because after you drop him to 0 HP, your party just has to run. For attacks, he gets a multi-attack, allowing him to make 2 lay waste attacks. Karthus can choose a 10-foot area within 110 feet of him to erupt in necrotic energy. Any creature in that area must make a DC 18 dexterity save or take 30 or 4d10 plus 7 necrotic damage and half as much on a successful save. And finally, his ultimate.
Sing with your final breath!
Karthus chooses 5 creatures within 140 feet of him. All creatures must make a DC 18 Constitution save or take 43 or 8d8 plus 7 necrotic damage on a failed save or half as much on a successful one. If you defeat Karthus, the Death Singer, I suggest you regroup and take a rest before taking on the most edgy king out there.
Love ruins all.
Viego is a medium humanoid undead with an AC of 17, HP of 215 or 32d8 plus 70, and a speed of 30. For stats, he has a total of 119 with 18 in strength, 30 in dexterity, 25 in constitution, 14 in intelligence, 15 in wisdom, and 17 in charisma. He is immune to necrotic damage, has a dark vision of 80, and a passive perception of 17. He has skills in athletics, stealth, intimidation, and persuasion, saving throw bonuses in strength, wisdom, dexterity, and constitution. He has innate spellcasting to cast Hold Person to resemble his stun, and darkness and fog cloud to resemble his mist. To really hammer home the mist, he has Harrowed Path. If Viego is in darkness, smoke, fog, or mist, his movement is increased by 40 feet, he can make an additional Blade of the Rune King attack, and he can make the Hide action as a bonus action by using the darkness, smoke, fog, or mist. For actions, he gets a multi-attack, where he can make 2 Blade of the Rune King attacks. It has a plus 10 to hit, and a 10-foot reach because it's long. It deals 31 or 3d12 plus 10 necrotic damage, and an additional damage equal to one of the target's hit die. Viego heals for that additional damage hit die. His other action is Heartbreaker. Viego jumps up into the air and slams down, creating an explosion of necrotic energy in a 40-foot area. Any creature in that area must make a DC 16 Constitution save or take 72 10d8 plus 25 necrotic damage, or half as much on a successful one. Lastly, we have one more ability to give him. His possession ability. This was a bit complicated, and I didn't want him to be only able to use this if he killed a player character, so this is what I came up with. If Viego lowers a creature with a class to 0 HP, he can take possession of part of their soul. The creature can still become stable with successful death saving throws, and can also come back to life, but they will suffer 1 point of exhaustion upon revival. Viego gets a buff depending on the class of the creature he has taken the soul from, so I'm gonna try to go through these as quick as I can.
You will serve!
Artificer, Viego gains 2 Artificer infusions. Barbarian, Viego rages, making him resistant to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage from non-magical attacks, and he is able to make the Reckless attack from the Barbarian class feature. Bard, Viego gains Bardic Inspiration from the Bard class feature. He is also able to use it on himself. Cleric, Viego does not count as undead anymore. Druid. Viego can wild shape into the druid's favored animal. Fighter. Viego can reroll 1s and 2s on damage dice. Monk. Viego can make an unarmed strike as a bonus action. The damage is now the same as the monk's unarmed strike he stole it from. Paladin. Viego's AC is increased by 1, and he is able to heal himself for 1d6 at the end of each turn. Ranger. Viego picks one creature within 120 feet of him. That creature becomes his favorite enemy, and he learns the language of that creature. He is also allowed to roll with advantage on attack rolls against that creature. Rogue. If Viego is in his harrowed path, he is able to deal sneak attack damage equal to the rogue's sneak attack damage. Sorcerer. The Viego can make a spell attack as a bonus action using the quicken spell. Warlock. Viego is able to make 3 Eldritch Blast attacks and 1 Blade of the Rune King attack. The damage is equal to the Warlock's Eldritch Blast damage. And finally, Wizard. Viego can cast the Wizard's highest level spell. Viego can only have 1 trait active at a time. If you lay ruin to this king, there is one more boss laying dormant underneath the Shadow Isles. Vile Maw. This gargantuan monstrosity has an AC of 18, HP of 100 or 14d20 plus 350, and a speed of 20, because with that tail end, there is no way that it's moving fast. For stats, they have a total of 130, with 30 in strength, 11 in dexterity, 30 in constitution, 22 in intelligence, 20 in wisdom, and 17 in charisma. They are immune to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage from non-magical weapons, poison, and acid damage. They are also immune to being stunned or frightened. They have dark vision of 150 feet, a passive perception of 20, with skills in history, perception, intimidation, persuasion, and deception, and saving throw skills in strength, wisdom, dexterity, constitution, and intelligence. It has a multi-eye skill where it has advantage on perception checks and saving throws against being blinded. They have innate spellcasting 4 times a day, where they can cast Insect Plague, create Undead, and can use one of the 4 to cast Psychic Scream. On top of that, they have legendary resistances. For actions, they can make 4 leg attacks that have a 15-foot reach and deal 3d4 plus 10 piercing damage. It also has its Maw attack. One creature in front of Vile Maw must make a DC 18 dexterity saving throw or be swallowed. The swallowed target is blinded and restrained. It has total cover against attacks and other effects outside of Vile Maw, and it takes 19 or 4d8 acid damage at the start of each of Vile Maw's turn. Vile Maw can have only 1 target swallowed at a time. The creature can attempt to break out on its turn by making a DC 18 strength saving throw. If Vile Maw dies, a swallowed creature is no longer restrained, and it can escape by using 5 feet of its movement. Then, lastly, it gets Frightful Presence and a big AoE attack. Every boss needs an AoE attack, and for Vile Maw, I made it Acid Eruption. Vile Maw's thorax erupts acid in a 100-foot area around Vile Maw. All creatures in that area must make a DC 14 Constitution save or take 25 or 7d6 acid damage on a failed save, or half as much on a successful one. If a creature fails the save, they must make a DC 13 Wisdom save or be charmed by Vile Maw. Can your players conquer the Shadow Isles? Comment below what Runeterra area I should do next.